How much could you know if you dedicated 30 minutes every day to learning for the next 10 years? That amounts to 1,825 hours of learning. And what if you devoted an hour each day? That is 3,650 hours. I won't bore you with any more introduction. This video will be about putting into words and images how much you can learn if you dedicated 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or 4 hours every day for 10 years, feeding your brain with knowledge and practice. In other words, I'll show you how many books you could read, languages you could master, instruments you could play, and skills you could develop by committing a specific amount of time every day for a decade. The sources I use to approximate the hours necessary to learn each thing can be found in a Google Sheet linked in the description. So, without further ado, let's start with 30 minutes. If you spend 30 minutes every day feeding your brain, that would equal to 1,825 hours of learning over 10 years. Now, when I mention 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, or 4 hours, it doesn't really have to be daily. It can be a weekly average. For example, for 30 minutes a day, you could do something like 3.5 hours every Saturday. Now, what would that look like after 10 years? Well, you could achieve general proficiency in 2 or 3 Category 1 languages, depending on your choices. General proficiency, according to the US Department of State, is a score of speaking of 3 out of 5 and reading a 3 out of 5 on the Interagency Language Roundtable scale. You can find more information on how the languages are categorized in the description. So, you could learn Danish, Italian, and Portuguese, or you could learn French and Spanish, which take a bit longer, and with the remaining 325 hours, you could read 26 nonfiction books, each 250 pages long. Alternatively, you could learn 1 Category 3 language and 1 Category 1 language, such as Russian and Spanish. If languages aren't your interest, it takes about 1,250 hours to reach an intermediate level in any instrument. This means you could learn to play the violin, guitar, or the French horn to an intermediate level and still have enough time left to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube under 30 seconds, learn Python programming, take a woodworking course, learn to juggle with 4 balls, and complete 3 university courses of your choice. You could also complete a 4-year degree, which amounts to 120 credit hours. Finally, if you love reading, you could read 146 books. This averages to 14 books per year, which is significantly higher than the US average of 5 books per year. Now let's move on to 1 hour. If you spend 1 hour every day learning, you'll accumulate 3,650 hours over 10 years. This could be achieved by dedicating 1 hour each morning or by doing 3.5 hours on both Saturday and Sunday. So let's start with books. You could read 292 books. For instruments, you could learn to play 2 instruments at an intermediate level and also learn how to sing, or you could master 1 instrument to an advanced level, learn how to sing, and even learn how to program. Why not? Regarding languages, you now have access to the big boy languages. You could learn a Category 4 language like Mandarin or Arabic, plus a Category 3 language like Hebrew. Alternatively, if you aim to speak the most languages possible, you could learn Danish, Dutch, Italian, Norwegian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Now imagine you're 20 years old now. By the age of 30, you could be proficient in 6 additional languages. Of course, you could cut that number in half and aim to reach fluency in 3 languages instead. You could also complete approximately 2 4-year bachelor's degrees, or a bachelor's degree plus a master's degree and half of a doctorate. Now let's move on to 2 hours. If you spend 2 hours every day learning for the next 10 years, you'll accumulate 7,300 hours in total. There are multiple ways to achieve this. You could spend 2 hours before or after work each day, or you can dedicate 7 hours on both Saturday and Sunday. This will be a lot more challenging than only dedicating 30 minutes or 1 hour daily, but as we'll see shortly, the rewards are significantly greater. Starting with books, you could read 584 books of 250 pages each. To put this into perspective, here's what 600 books look like. You could read all of that by dedicating 2 hours a day for 10 years. For languages, you could know the 6 most spoken languages in the world by total number of speakers: English, Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish, French, and Standard Arabic. While I don't have any estimate for the hours needed to reach native level fluency, these hours are sufficient to achieve at least general proficiency. If your goal is to speak as many languages as possible, you could learn French, Danish, Dutch, Italian, Norwegian, Portuguese, Romanian, Spanish, and German, and still have time left to read 56 books. It's worth noting that once you learn one language like Spanish, it probably will take you less time to learn similar languages like French, Italian, or Portuguese due to their similarities. In terms of formal education, you could complete a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate and still have 2,800 hours left. You could use that time to achieve an advanced level in an instrument or learn how to cook, paint, solve a Rubik's Cube in under 30 seconds, take a woodworking course, knit, juggle 4 balls, and reach an 1800 ELO in chess. Lastly, for instruments with 7,300 hours, you would be between the expert and professional levels. Now let's move on to 4 hours. To conclude, here's what you could achieve if you spend 4 hours every day learning. While theoretically possible to do this alongside a 9-to-5 job, I don't really think it's practical for most people, because even if you have 8 hours left after sleeping and working, this time will probably get consumed by commuting, cooking, cleaning, showering, relaxing, and potentially taking care of the children. So, in my opinion, 4 hours of daily learning is more feasible for those with a part-time job, no job, or whose job involves learning. So, what can you achieve with 4,600 hours of learning? Well, essentially, you can become an expert in almost any domain. If you dedicate 14,600 hours to learning any language, you will probably become more knowledgeable about that language than most native speakers. If you invest 14,600 hours in studying any subject, mathematics, biology, law, physics, you will surpass the knowledge level of 99.9% of the population. If you spend 14,600 hours learning an instrument, you would reach a level between professional and master. Another 4 years will elevate you to a frightening demon level. You could also read 1,168 books, totaling 292,000 pages. Now, I won't break down everything you could learn as I did for shorter time spans because it would probably encompass nearly everything. So, simply put, if you spend 4 hours every day learning, the sky is the limit. I hope you enjoyed this visual breakdown of what you could learn by dedicating X amount of time every day for 10 years. If you're interested in the best ways to learn, I made a video a year ago breaking down insights from books on learning. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.